everybody. Welcome to What Drives Us, episode 340. Are we at 340?
340. Yeah.
This is what happens when I don't do a title card for the show. Episode 340 for Wednesday, November 6th, 2019. My name is Russell Frost, your host. Look at this. Your host for this week's adventure into sustainable energy and advanced tech mobility. We have a special guest for the entirety of the show. We're going to introduce him last because he's the most important one. So let's get this panel out of the way. My co-host and good friend, Mr. Tony Schaefer.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to 340. Wow, November 6th. It's getting late in the year. It's getting cold in Chicago. I don't like it.
Can I tell you, it was a beautiful, 70 degrees here today, all day. Tony.
No, you cannot.
It was sunny. There were hummingbirds in the backyard.
We only got to 60.
Yeah.
Someone else who lives in the beautiful, warmer climates of Kitchener, Ontario, our friend with the Aero Wheel collection, Mr. Mark Coughlin.
Tony, I got some advice for you. It's simple. It's easy. Move.
How's that working out for you, Mark?
Yeah.
Not so good. Not so good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show.
That's it. And we have the newest Midwest music entrepreneur hosting his own house concert in January 21st. If you're anywhere near the Springfield area, yes, that's a plug for our friend Michael Mannering, who's playing at Evan Fusco's house.
Yeah, is that crazy?
I am super jealous.
I'm pretty excited about it. It should be a good time. So yes, and as far as the weather here, 10 minutes ago it was cool and rainy. It could be sunny and 92 by now. It's Missouri weather. So
it's Missouri. Well, speaking of Missouri,
wait, beer.
Beer.
Yes, Diamond Bear Fest, a Marzan style lager is the beverage of choice.
Ooh.
It's a very casual sort of name, Fest.
Well, it's festive.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of casual, he is in the elegant sweater and collared shirt with his favorite Tesla vehicles behind him. He is a YouTube entrepreneur and all-around Tesla expert, Casey Green.
I'm into Tesla now. I mean, I've always been into green cars. I met all of you guys at Hybrid Fest with Prius Chat, and I mean, come on, guys. But yeah, I'm Casey Green.
But you're a Tesla guy now.
I'm a Tesla guy now, yeah. And yeah, so it was. It started out in the 40s today. It got up to 60, and then immediately plummeted by the time work was over, which was.
Paul's laughing. He's sneering at our weather.
He is. Yeah. So we did a couple videos this weekend, and my sleepiest Supercharger video yet. I didn't realize how I get when I'm in need of sleep. So that was fun for those of you that have seen it, and those of you who haven't, check it out.
There you go.
Yeah.
And our final panelist for this evening, but certainly not the least important. He is the founder and genius behind Boulder Hybrids in Boulder, Colorado. I like to think of him as Paul Guzik.
Good to be back, and my beer sponsor today is Voodoo Ranger. Oh yes. How do I...
Yeah.
There goes your sponsorship.
Yeah, your focus. There we go. Put it closer to your face. Closer to your face. There you go.
Like
wow. That's like an endorsement. Now, there's one person here, the whole reason for tonight's show that I haven't introduced yet. He is Mr. Chris Anthony. He is the co-CEO of Aptera Motors, the newly rejuvenated Aptera Motors. By way of a little bit of history, he is the founder and former CEO of Flux Power. They are an advanced lithium battery tech company. He's the founder of Epic Boats, a market leader in resin-infused watercraft. He has been personally involved in raising more than $100 million in private equity for the companies he's worked with. Chris Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Glad to see everybody.
Absolutely. And just, you know what, I should have explained this before the show, so forgive me, but the little Brady Bunch kind of grid work here thing, the way you're seeing it, Chris, is not the way that it actually is going to end up looking. So just so you have an idea that Like, this is a little weird arrangement. It does some magic behind the scenes.
All right. Magic behind the scenes. Works for me.
So I'm going to jump in and start. Aptera was here. You guys tried to do some really cool stuff. It didn't work out. And that happens. That happens more often than not. Especially with car companies, new car companies, when you're trying, especially with cutting edge technology car companies, you're bringing it back. Why?
Yeah. We had so many innovative things. Unfortunately, they were so innovative that no one else was doing them, and there was no support for anything like we were trying to do, and everything was a new and grand engineering effort. So we conquered a lot of those, but a lot of those cost a lot of money to conquer. And as we started to get some excitement around the brand, and we got a bunch of pre-orders, we had 4,400 pre-orders just in California. We could have had 20,000 or more, I'm sure, if we opened it up worldwide. But the board of directors saw a great opportunity to build 100,000, 200,000 Aptera a year, and Steve and I hadn't built 200,000 of anything a year. So we hired a new management team, and they came in and they set about with a new plan to execute on those bigger dreams. And that more money, which on top of all the engineering efforts that we had to conquer originally, launching into 200,000 units a year of production is darn expensive. And I don't know if you remember, but 2008, 2009 was not a fun economic time. So raising money for a very unique electric vehicle, when electric vehicles at all were questioned. Tesla had just put out the Roadster. We were up at Google with our first prototypes of Aptera, and literally got one of the first 3 Roadsters off the line there to come and have fun with us. So it was a difficult time when no one else was doing what we were trying to do, even a little bit. So not being able to raise private money meant the management team had to go and find some government money. And government money is even more difficult to come by sometimes than private money, because there's all sorts of bureaucratic loops you have to go through. And Steve and I, about this time had left the company and moved on to other endeavors. Steve building the world's largest hydroponics farm and working on some very cool innovations to make the world a cleaner, greener place. I had moved on to my battery company, my lithium battery company, Flux. And the other team set about trying to conquer this Department of Energy loan. And unfortunately, we're denied 2 times. And those 2 denials took a long time, a couple years. And then the company was really left with no really good options to, proceed into production. So they liquidated the company, they paid out the investors, they returned all the deposits, and everybody went about their merry way. The funny thing was, about 3 months after that liquidation, they were actually approved for that Department of Energy loan. Oh. But it was too so that's a sad time. But there's about $17 billion left in that loan program, and because we were granted that loan before, we're hopeful that we can go back and approach that loan program when we start to ramp into to bigger production. But I was off doing my battery stuff, and Steve was off running a clean tech fund in Abu Dhabi and building his advanced hydroponics farm. We both had great successes elsewhere and learned a lot about how business works and why, and how to build things of value. So when the opportunity came back up to get back into Aptera, to reacquire the intellectual property and get things going again, I jumped at the opportunity. So I'd always kept an eye on it and always wanted to revive the project, but there was just never an opportunity, and this was our window. So beginning of last year, we jumped back in and started the design phase, and found out really quickly that all the goodness that we had built into the last Aptera translated very well to a world where Tesla had innovated greatly on the drivetrain side and innovated greatly on the battery side, and there was actual standards for charging when we started, there wasn't even a J1772 standard. We couldn't even plug the damn car in.
Right.
So, so, nowadays, it was funny going back and looking at the old design and just seeing how atrocious some of the systems were. The batteries were 6 times larger than they are now, just volumetrically, because they were air-cooled A123 batteries. It was, just a nightmare looking at how that system came together. But now we're able to cram so much more energy density into a given, amount of space and go so much further. So we started, rebuilding our MATLAB models and rerunning our computational fluid dynamics models. And we found that, holy crap, with a 100 kilowatt hour pack, we can drive this thing over 1,000 miles. I think that's pretty compelling. I think people will find that compelling. So, it's been putting together the story and telling people the story and just trying to get our name back out there over the last 3 or 4 months. And I saw your guys' last podcast mentioning our launch, and to say you were critical would probably be putting a positive spin on it.
It's not often we get to apologize to the people who are criticizing.
I don't apologize at all, man. I totally feel you. Totally feel you for a lot of reasons.
Right.
I wanted to reach out and say, hey, I think efficiency in transportation is important. I understand why you guys probably would give us a pass because of our history. But I'd love to come on and talk about efficiency and why I think it matters and why I think the rest of the EV industry should be more efficient. Like Aptera is, it's better for the world. It's better for all of us. So I would love to jump in and talk about Aptera more and talk about the EV industry and anything else that's on your guys' mind.
Now, going history, going back, am I correct in my memory that originally there were gasoline versions of Apteras?
There was gasoline versions of Apteras. The first kind of ethos of what we were trying to do was to make just the most efficient vehicle possible, and electric drivetrains didn't seem to be possible at all. So the first vehicle was single-cylinder diesel-driven vehicle.
Kind of like Alio did, where you were just going for the most miles per fill commuter car.
Yeah, mile per gallon equivalent didn't exist. So we had to prove how far we could go on just a gallon of gas because nobody knew what an electric equivalency was. So we. Somebody typed a funny comment. We literally put 2 gallons of diesel in a tank, and we drove as far as we could drive out on the flat part of the freeway as you head out to the desert here. And we got 430 miles per gallon in that first vehicle, and we thought that was a really impressive number. So we went back to the investors and said, our first prototype runs really well. It proves our aerodynamic theories. It proves our rolling resistance theories. It proves that, this shape can surround 2 people comfortably and can get really good fuel economy. So how do we take the next step? And then we raised more money. And the next step was, gasoline in general is not that efficient. If you can only get 25% of the energy out of the fuel you use, that's already starting with a negative. So we need to go to electric. How do we make this an electric vehicle? And that's when the challenges really started.
So was the hybrid in the middle of that, or was that when you realized that there was a range limitation on the electric?
The hybrid was, this was in the early days of the Prius. So,
it was. I had a Prius at the time.
The hybrid was really because, it seemed like a very logical solution to battery energy densities not being that great. So because the energy density sucked so bad on the first lithium batteries, it was like, we could have a 90 to 150 mile range car, or we could have something that's a hybrid and could have range as far as you wanted to go because you have
a call him back.
Wait, we were being so nice.
Yeah, and it just like that, it was over.
And it kicked me out too.
Well, hopefully Chris will come back. He He should be able to call back in, but let me try and add him in.
His tank of diesel just ran out.
You gotta save some of the punchlines when he can defend himself.
Yeah.
I try to remember what we used to say back in the old days. You know what I mean? Talking about Aptera, and I don't think it started out being bad, but that's probably selective memory.
I think I at Honda at the time, and I totally wanted to buy one. I had the money down, ready to go to deposit it with them, and then it went belly up.
No, at the time, there were no other real options that looked promising and something that was affordable. I think people were kind of excited.
I love their price.
Yeah, I mean, the design was always kind of a, maybe too futuristic. I think everybody felt that, but at the same time, we were all hungry for a real electric car that had some range and was, roadworthy and stuff. So I think there was a lot of excitement there. I know I was following it closely. I wasn't dumb enough to put a deposit down on a case. But no, I mean, look, I think we all
have the means to do it. It was really close.
Yeah. Well, anybody have any?
Yeah, I was going to say, unfortunately, we know that Chris's lab, where he is in the workshop, is, it's isolated. So the internet is a little sketchy, and that's why he's cut out here.
Yeah, he has this amazing lab, but not the best internet connection. Oh, there we go.
Back.
We're back.
Yeah, the sky.
Oh. Uh-oh.
You can leave, Chris. Just don't leave mad.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
I think your video's frozen, but I think we can hear you.
All right, are we all back online?
I can hear you now.
We're there.
You're frozen, but we can hear you.
Yeah. Your video's just it's obviously it's struggling with the connection at some point.
Okay. Well,
if you want, you can select the option to disable video, and that would give you more
bandwidth for the
audio bandwidth. Yeah. Dun, dun, dun. I mean, not that you're not a handsome young man and all that, but...
And I love the background. Look at that.
Yeah, the background's very cool.
He's actually in the back cave.
Streaming okay?
Yeah.
It's getting better, yes.
Is it possible? I mean, do you share an internet connection? Is someone streaming Netflix right now?
Right? Tell us, knock it off.
One's helping me. Here, let me try to go to my phone.
Uh-oh. Okay. Sometimes that
has happened to me. I'm hardwired into the router, and my wife will start streaming Netflix on the Wi-Fi, and I will literally pull up the router and disconnect Wi-Fi.
Well, the secret is now out.
Yeah.
Still says poor Vic, but I see all of you guys. So
yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, it's sometimes really. I mean, I have a fast connection, and it takes a while to reload that stuff. Sometimes Skype is okay. It looks like you're working now.
Yeah.
So let's see. Where were we? I think you were talking about the original.
We're talking about the hybrid versions of the first Aptera and why it was something that we were considering, and it was really just because hybrid propulsion had just kind of gotten a footing with the Prius. And it seemed a great solution to the limitations on battery technology at the time. So we had planned that hybrid to be an alternative to the all-electric vehicles.
Cool.
And the hybrid was still a 150 mile per gallon alternative. So it was a really trick system that got you really great fuel economy.
Yeah. Wow. 150. Jeez.
So you mentioned that this time is going to have a. Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead, Casey.
You mentioned that this time it's going to have a 100 kilowatt hour battery. So I was curious if would What would it take to join the Supercharger network? Like we've heard that Elon says that is open, and would you also put CCS on it if that were something that you did?
Yeah, CCS is planned. The Supercharger network is a whole different ball of wax for sure. Those type of strategic alliances, probably come after we have more footing and become, more tangible as a company. But yeah, it would be. We're going to operate at very comparable voltage ranges to the Teslas, so there's no reason why we couldn't use that network to charge. It could get on Super network. You could add 1,000 miles of range to your battery pack in about an hour, so that would be fun. You could take really long road trips and charge really, really quickly at that point. So, one of the great things about having a vehicle that only uses 100 watt hours per mile at highway speeds is it changes the equation on how you charge it.
Yeah, it's a third of what I get right now.
Yeah, with just a regular plug from your wall, that you would use to charge your cell phone, this plug will get you 13 miles an hour. So
one.
So was that an official Aptera plug? Was that a?
It was Gen 1.
That's the Aptera standard.
Yes. That's a glue gun.
But 13 miles an hour off of a small plug like that, and you can quadruple that off of any 220 line. If you can get 220 up to 50 amps, then you're really cranking the juice in the vehicle. No situation.
Didn't I read on your website if the car is parked in the sun, the solar panels will give you X miles a day?
Yeah, so the solar advantage is a whole different equation. And we had solar on the original Aptera, but it was really just to keep the car cool on hot days. So we'd use it to run the climate control on hot days. And we'd cycle the air, yeah. So what it did was it allowed us to keep our air conditioning compressor smaller. Because on a hot day, when you get into a hot car, you have to crank up the AC really high to cool your car down because it's so dang hot in there. So if you could keep the car at ambient, even on a 100-degree day, you don't have to cool down the car nearly as much. You can have a lot smaller AC compressor, which lowers our weight, which makes us more efficient, all those things. So, but now that solar is, 3 times almost as efficient as it was back when we first started Aptera, the equation is just much better to be able to make. So yeah, the solar complement that we have on the vehicle now, it provides about 700 watts of power, and in really sunny climates you can get 44 miles a day of solar charge to the car. So if you're in LA in peak summer, you can add 44 miles of range just by parking outside when you go to work, which we think is really cool. Most people in the US, the average commute is 29 miles a day. So if you can get anywhere north of 30, you don't ever have to plug in again. So that's why we call it a never charge, because for a lot of people, for the majority of drivers in America and Europe, you would never have to charge again. You would just drive and drive and drive. So.
Yeah, I want to go ahead and I'm sharing the Aptera website here, and there is a map here you have on the website talking about the different zones and where you live and whatever. And so, like, I did it for me here. Chicago was clearly in the yellow. The yellow is zone 4, and I drive about 30 miles a day, maybe let's say 35. And so I would maybe have to plug in 4 times. But even that, I doubt that I would even have to do that. But even so, I have 120, charger in the garage. So whoop-de-doo, big deal. I'm plugging in.
Yeah, to be able to plug into an extension cord is a big difference for people thinking about installing a $1,200 or $1,500 charger in their garage. It also really opens up the charging capabilities where these drive-on chargers or these contactable chargers, they don't have to pull 50 kilowatts to keep the Aptera charged. They only have to pull 1 kilowatt. So you can imagine driving over something that has a couple of small contactors on it, and it just touches the bottom of the Aptera and it charges your vehicle for you. We can do that because you really only need, even 500 watts overnight would add, 56 miles of range to your Aptera. That's super low current. It's super easy to implement. It's just a totally different ball of wax when you think about how you relate to your car. So.
Right. Chris, I got a question for you. You talked about the trials and tribulations you had with the first go around and what you and your partner had learned from those. How do you see your second go around being better? Obviously, your hopes are, but what are you putting in place to make it go correctly the second time around, as opposed to what happened the first time around?
Yeah, well, one thing, I've had a decade more of manufacturing experience. My boat company, Epic Boats, as you guys alluded to, a couple thousand boats in Louisiana. Ramping each new style and design of boat is a whole tooling effort and design effort. And the part count of a boat that we make is actually more than what we have in the Aptera. So, one, Steve and I have a lot more experience and stuff like that. Two, the supply chain for the EV world it was just non-existent when we first started. Everything from high power cabling to battery module connectors to fusing to all the electronics to even the charge connectors, they didn't exist 10 years ago. So all that stuff we kind of had to invent and come up with or adapt from other industries and just hope that they worked in our product reliably. But now you have a whole, industry that supports the EV makers of the world, from Nissan to Tesla to all these things. Being able to access that supply chain and put it into our very aerodynamic, lightweight designs is something that will really help us get a head start on our production and stuff like that. Sorry, someone was messaging me. I didn't know to turn off all my apps.
Oh,
that's
okay. You're allowed to have a life. Hey, Evan, I think you had a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had one earlier, but actually I've got a new one if I can use that. But so
go for it, man.
So in some ways, some of the opportunities that you talked about that may contribute to being successful this time around. There's also some things in the industry that are working against you, and you've got a very strong competitor in Tesla. And well, the 1,000 miles might sound compelling. I think Tesla's done a good job of convincing people you don't really need 1,000 miles. You need 200, 300 miles and an excellent charging network to support your travel needs.
Yeah, certainly. What Tesla's doing. I drive a Model S. I'm very supportive of Tesla in every way. Many of the engineers that we had working for Aptera originally went on to companies like Tesla and Apple and other big tech companies up in Silicon Valley. So, I have nothing but, love for Tesla and what they're doing, and I wish them nothing but success. And I think that the groundwork that they've laid, for us, showing that EVs can be comfortable, can be performance oriented, can really meet all of your daily driving needs, is incredible for Aptera, because now it's not something that people have to wrap their heads around. Oh man, it's electric. How do I charge it? How does it work? How is it going to get electrocuted when it rains? Some very basic questions that people had for us 10 years ago have been answered, because there's a very popular brand out there that's the one selling in Sweden is Tesla for a reason. I think they've done a great job, and I think what they've done for us in laying that groundwork is immeasurable. I really don't see them as competition, though. We're in a different class of performance. You buy fast cars because you want them to be fast. You buy utilitarian cars or off-road cars because you want them to be very capable. If you want the most efficient transportation possible, more efficient than you and a passenger on bicycles driving in highways, pedaling in highway speeds, then the Aptera is your choice. So, we think that we're, not really competing with Tesla. We think there's a huge market for, many EV players, and we think we fit well into that mix. So
okay. Can I follow that up? Just
sure.
Yeah. So the price point that you're saying the Aptera is going to sell at, though, is right in the range of a Model 3. And if I'm out shopping cars, I'm not sure the calculation I'm looking at is the watt hours per mile efficiency of the vehicle. I'm looking at what's going to be most practical. How many groceries can I fit in this thing? Can I take it, on a trip with, my family of 4 and the gear that we need across the country and things like that. So I think to some regard, you are competing with Tesla because you're at a price point in the market for an EV, and you're going to have to find an audience. So do you have what do you think the target audience looks like in that price range?
Yeah, I mean, you're not unusual in describing what a mainstream customer would be looking for in a vehicle, right? Utility factor, how much space it has, how many people it can take, how far it can go, are all huge requirements for a lot of buyers. What we're looking for is people that, just like people want to buy the fastest vehicle in the world because they like the tech that's in that vehicle, we think there's a broad audience of people that want the most efficient transportation, using the least amount of energy, having the least amount of impact, not just in energy use per mile, but also on what it takes to build the vehicle. So, we're talking about a 100 kilowatt hour pack in a vehicle that can get you a 1,000-mile range. Well, the contra to that is a 30 kilowatt hour pack that can get you 300 miles range. Well, if you compare that to a Tesla, it takes a lot less batteries to go the same amount of difference, which is a lot less impact on the environment, using a lot of materials to build a vehicle. In general is a lighter vehicle. It's a composite vehicle that could last many generations if well taken care of. So it's a different, buying constraint for sure. It will not meet the utility of mainstream audiences right now, nor do we expect it to. But we think a company built on the ethos of efficiency and using the most efficient materials, the best build practices, will get us far in this market for a lot of reasons. This 3-wheeler is not for everyone, but it's not all that we have in our product pipeline either. You can build anything to be more efficient. You can build a 4-wheel vehicle 5-passenger, you can build a utility vehicle, you can build a pickup truck, you can certainly build a semi-truck that's way, way, way more efficient than what's on the road today. It just takes an engineering team that's dedicated to light materials in a powertrain, and that's what we're focused on.
So kind of like the organic food market, the hemp bags and all that, like.
Yeah. I mean, people have environmental concern for the things they're consuming. Yeah. The things that you put in your mouth have an environmental impact. Certainly, meat has an environmental impact. That cow drank a lot of water and had to be washed down and ate a lot of corn to be as big as it was before it became hamburgers. Just like everything else in the food chain, right? So, the people that have concern for the things that they consume, like produce and meats and other things, are maybe the same kind of people that have concern for how much impact they have when they use transportation. A lot of people will not fly in an airplane because they don't like how much emissions airplanes produce. A lot of people ride vehicles that want transportation, the environmental impact that it has. So we do think that there's a considerable amount of people, and a lot of them live in the Smile States in California, in Texas, and New York, and the coastal regions. But those people that don't need all the utility that someone might need if they have 3 kids that they have to take everywhere every day, they could find a lot of utility in an Aptera. You can take 1 passenger. It's got 25 cubic feet of storage. It's got 60% more storage than an Accord. It's got 30% more storage than a Prius. It's got a lot of utility built in it. You can put 2 7-foot surfboards in the back and hit the coast. You can put 2 snowboards and a bunch of snowboarding gear and head up to the mountains. It's got all-wheel drive. There's lots of things that you can do in a 2-passenger vehicle like this.
So yeah, with that in mind, I know when I had my Prius, and I have another Prius, people always asked about, well, what if you need to haul things? What if you have to do this? What if you have to do this? And I always remind them that the average work year is 250 days. For 250 out of the 365 days, it's me in a car that seats 5, driving alone, 18 to 24 miles each way. And once or twice, I will need to haul something. And usually what I do is I ask a friend with a truck and I buy him a 6-pack and I borrow his truck for a weekend. I let him buy the gas for a whole year and then I borrow his truck for the weekend.
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like, yeah, you're right. The Aptera is a good 1 or 2 passenger regular driver. And then, if you have to take the family on something, you have another car that has that much potential. Or as we've mentioned many times, you could go to Enterprise and rent a car for a weekend or something that might meet whatever needs you might have.
Let them take the depreciation taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can go to any Home Depot and rent a truck for the afternoon, and leave your electric car at Home Depot and go do what you need to do and bring the truck right back and give it to Home Depot and you're done. There's lots of utility options, but, we anticipate that the majority of people that buy an Aptera, it will be their second car. It will be for someone who drives to work, by themselves every day and really likes the option of having a vehicle like this. You can still use it on the weekends, but you're not going to put 3 kids in the back. I've got 2 little ones, and that's a concern. My wife's got a 4Runner. I've got a Model S. We have plenty of utility in those 2 vehicles. But if I was commuting 50 miles a day, I would be very concerned about how much I was impacting the environment and how much I was using on a daily basis to make that for sure.
So
are you expecting
go ahead.
I was just going to say, are you expecting the car to be eligible for the HOV stickers in California?
Technically, this is a motorcycle, so yeah, you would anywhere where motorcycles get HOV status, this vehicle would be able to get that sticker. And
so
we had
probably wouldn't want to do lane splitting though in it.
No.
If you just want to bulldoze some people out of the way, that's always
that's a big negative on the lane splitting.
A misconception about Aptera is that it's small. It is not small.
Yeah.
It's long and it's as I said, it's got 25 cubic feet of storage in the rear, and it is not 2 people slammed right next to each other in the driver and passenger seat. It's a spacious, rather sizable vehicle.
Could you repeat those dimensions again? You had a bandwidth hiccup there.
It's as long as a Prius and as wide as a Tesla Model S.
Okay, so it's still as big as it used to be.
Yes.
So how does the safety compare now versus what it used to be? Is it still, obviously you're still targeting to make it as safe as possible. How does it work? There were some concerns about safety.
Yeah, it's a good question. The composite safety cell that we designed into the original is largely the thinking that we're putting into this new vehicle. But the team, our team up in Canada and our 2 teams up in LA, have had a lot of time to see the evolution of composites in the automotive and race industry. Composite safety cell formula industry in the aircraft industry have changed dramatically over the last decade, and we're including that thinking in what we're doing today. But what it allows us to do is have the highest roof crush strength in the industry. Our previous vehicle, we went through all the NHTSA crash tests, and we built our own roof crush jigs and had the independent testing done. It had the highest roof crush strength of anything you could drive on the road, which is a big statement. If you're in a passenger vehicle, it was not as strong as an Aptera. People see it and they think that the Aptera is small and possibly weak. That's just not the case. We've also built in a front impact strategy that's very unique and can really only be executed with a composite type vehicle. Great redirection of energy strategies, great crumple zones, foam in the nose cone, and some interesting materials that we didn't have access to 10 years ago, along with bags and impact stuff that you would find in more traditional vehicles that just work better in a composite vehicle because you can redirect energy so well. In a steel vehicle, steel likes to deform and it doesn't transmit energy very well unless you have a kind of a boxed beam structure. In composites, that's not the case. Every fiber of a composite carries that energy wherever you want it to go. That's how you design the vehicle. That's why you don't see a lot of steel in Formula One cars, right? You see a lot of carbon fiber and those type of materials. So, our safety strategy is to be one of the safest vehicles on the road, and to certainly protect our occupants as well as they can be protected. Certainly far above the federal motor vehicle safety standards that are set today.
And then recently, people have brought up about the engine nacelles, the wheel pods. How do they fare now versus then? In a say, some jerk driver just kind of doesn't realize how wide the vehicle is and cuts
wheel
too close.
covers or the in-wheel motor.
The actual support, the
the front wheels.
Yeah, the front wheels, the whole assembly.
If
somebody cuts you off and clips you.
Yeah, it's an interesting design element, and it's an aerodynamic element that is kind of a necessity for a very aerodynamic vehicle. The one thing that we can't get around aerodynamically is that the wheels have to touch the ground. We haven't created levitation technology yet. So the dirtiest aerodynamics are where the wheel touches the ground, because we can't avoid it. It's a big flat rubber thing that touches the ground, and it just has dirty air. So, what the Aptera does well is we take that dirty air and we move it outside the body. So dirty air over here doesn't interact with the body in the middle. And that's why the wheels are outboard. Many people will never consider buying an Aptera because it has outboard wheels. We get look very full. But aerodynamically, it's a necessity to have as low a drag as we have. You'll never see a vehicle with inboard wheels that have coefficients of drag like ours do. Yeah. But because of that, we do have to take special care with how those are made and how those detach in a severe, accident. And for low speed stuff, how they're very survivable. They have a 5-inch entry and exit angle, so you can hit any kind of speed bump you want or pothole, or not have any issues. Great entry angles if you're going up steep hills. But the bottom is soft plastic. So if you do curb it on a high curb, or you do take a side swipe from the tire of another vehicle or something, it's not something that's going to wreck your pocketbook. You pay $40 for the new plastic skirt at the bottom of the wheel pant, and you just replace it. If you take off a $200 wheel pant at some point, the inside is struck on the end wheel, and other stuff is rather cheap, expendable materials. So that's how we're thinking about our wheel pants. We had hundreds of thousands of miles of testing on our previous prototypes. And I was just recanting to someone who asked a question online. I can't remember an occasion that we had any severe damage to a wheel pant. We had scratches on the bottom of the pants, and sometimes some scratches on the side from driving too close to bushes and stuff like that. But nothing that I remember that was severe in that regard. So once you get in the vehicle, it takes you a little while to get used to where that wheel is. But there's great lines of sights from the corner of the window to see the top of those wheel pants, and you get used to them very quickly. Within a couple of hours, where those wheel pants are, a couple of days, you're not fearful of running into stuff. It's just not a thing.
Yeah, I liked one of the things you pointed out first go around, where you kind of push them as far as they would go for extra stability, so you could take faster, harder turns, and then you put it in that race where it won a couple heats or the whole thing. Steve and I weren't a part of the company during the X Prize. Okay.
But yeah, they put it through some pretty harsh durability tests. They wanted those X Prize contestants to meet all the performance standards that a typical vehicle would have. So yeah, they had to do the moose test, where there's a moose in the middle of the road and you have to dodge out of the moose test, and it passed all of those tests with flying colors. I think there was some incidents with all the competitors, but yeah, it did very well, and it was very stable. We did skid pad tests several places. Went out to the Arizona desert as a track out. You could you could not get this vehicle to lift an inside wheel, no matter how aggressively you turned, unless you're 60 miles an hour turning aggressively and pop a curb. It's not something that is unstable. It's very stable, very wide front wheelbase. The weight is front biased to the front wheels. And something we didn't talk about is why 3 wheels at all. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with racing. And if you note small front wheel driven race cars, anytime they're taking an aggressive corner, they're going to lift the inside rear wheel. You don't even get traction from that rear wheel in aggressive turning. So why do you need that 4th wheel? We would say you don't need it. Get rid of it. Pinch the turning radius in the rear. You get rid of all that rear vehicle weight, that wheel weight, suspension weight, rolling resistance. Those things cut. We go. Platforms for efficiency are the way to go.
So then, are you saying, is this a front wheel or rear wheel drive?
This vehicle is all-wheel drive,
Okay.
but the first vehicles were front-wheel drive. And front wheels is where you get all your power and traction, because that's where the weight is biased to. But this new vehicle, it's great with the in-wheel motors because we can torque vector between the 3 different wheels. So 1, we can put the power where it's needed. 2, you can assist in steering. So, like tank steering, you speed up one side and slow down the other, you turn the vehicle. That's something that we can do with our vectorized torque controls. It also allows us to keep each wheel motor in the optimal efficiency range, the optimal torque and efficiency range that it needs to be in at any time. So at highway speeds, you may not need to run all 3 motors. You may need one. Given condition, we're optimizing for efficiency, not just performance. But you can tell where the wheel is in those motors within, like a 64th of a revolution. So you can turn back on the power anytime you want. So anytime you need it. So you can completely cut out a wheel and a split second later turn it back on and be full power if you need it. So it's a very cool system to be all-wheel drive. And we do think that a lot of automakers over the next 5 years will switch over to in-wheel motors because it does so many things for performance. But more importantly, it makes the vehicle more easily manufactured. You get rid of everything that you have to build in to get power to the wheel. So things like transaxles and axles and all the weight that comes along with those are gone if you put the motor in the wheel, which we're doing.
No. Kids need to understand sitting on the hump of the station wagon. All right. I had to sit on the hump. Kids have to sit on the hump. So there's got to be a hump.
So speaking of relics, are you going to have 12 volt, 24 volt, no step down battery, or how's that going to work?
That's a good question. We will probably have a 12 volt system with a 12 volt battery.
But lighter.
Delve that deep into the system architecture. But right now it's all a DC to DC conversion. But there will probably be a buffer in there just because that's life. Unfortunately.
Yeah. Do you guys have a working prototype right now?
We do not. So all the prototypes we built were of the legacy design. So right now we're engineering the new version. We've got a lot of that done, but we're pressing to be releasing on different engineered by year. That is, between body systems, electrical, mechanical, we're pressing to get those done by the end of the year and start building our first prototypes for kind of end of Q1 next year. So March time frame be driving something.
Nice.
And have you worked out a weight for? Let's just go with the 100 kilowatt pack version.
Yeah, the 100 kilowatt versions in the 2,200 pound range, and the 60 kilowatt versions in the 1,800 pound range. We're not sure what we're going to offer below that. We're kind of waiting for our investors, and then we'll open up pre-orders and for those people to tell us what they want. So we'll probably do some surveys in the future and say, how far do you want your to, what what do you want to buy, and start building out our feature list from that. Right now, we're package protecting for all those options. So up to 100 kilowatts and down to as small as you want to go. If you get under 20 kilowatts, it gets difficult to put power to the tires. So, under a certain battery range, it gets difficult to have a fully powered car because you can't discharge the batteries that much.
It would also probably blow around on the road at some point. Not literally, but I mean, weight helps, especially on an 80 mile an hour freeway.
Did any of those prototypes survive? Any of the originals?
Yes, they were purchased by a group, and we've been talking with that group about how to reacquire those assets, but those talks have gone very, very, very slowly.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
So I want to ask about, you had said that these are technically motorcycles?
Yes.
And legally
yes.
motorcycles?
So, in all but 2 states now, yes, these would be classified as motorcycles, and you wouldn't need a motorcycle license. You'd only need a driver's license. In 2 states, you would still need a driver's license, but we're working on trying to.
How about the helmet?
Do you have to wear a helmet then?
And I know of nowhere that you would need to wear a helmet, but in some states you would need to have a motorcycle's endorsement on your license, and that's only 2 states right now. Everywhere where people live, I think is just fine. I think it's Alaska and one of the northeastern states.
So I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but and I don't mean this in a cynical, sinister way, but being categorized as a motorcycle, does that allow you to get away with some things? And the reason I ask is I'm looking here on the website, and it looks like the rear view and side view mirrors are cameras. And is that something you would be able to do? I didn't think you could do that yet with a car. Would you be able to do that in a motorcycle is what I'm saying?
The get away with part is an interesting question. We're designing this vehicle to exceed all traditional passenger car motor vehicle safety standards. So we're not trying to skirt anything, but the motorcycle regs do allow a lot of self-certification, which if you're building a 4-wheel mass production vehicle would cost you a lot of money and take a lot of time to do. So for a time to market perspective, we can go to a third-party lab and get testing done in a couple months, whereas an automotive manufacturer that's building a 4-wheel vehicle that's intending to sell 10,000 a year would have to take 6 months plus and spend time and money to spend. So it save us money for sure. On the side view mirror side, the regulations for rear visibility on a motorcycle are a lot less. It's basically you need a mirror that's this big somewhere. And so we can have any kind of supplement to that we want. So we can have any kind of camera systems or visibility systems we want in addition to that mirror. And we will apply for a waiver for that mirror so we don't have to have it at all. But if we do, we'll probably put a mirror in that isn't something you maybe use a lot. You use your camera systems all the time, but you have that backup manual mirror if you need it.
Like how the Bolt's got the flippy thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
What about insurance?
Yeah, insurance is a great one because insuring a motorcycle is a lot cheaper than insuring a car. So pay just less. I can't tell you much less because you have to contact your insurer, but probably less than half of what you would pay for a traditional automobile in insurance.
Especially if you have $40 wheel skirts.
Yeah.
That's certainly an issue with Tesla right now, is the availability parts and the cost of parts and all of that. I mean, it's very smart to build a vehicle that's like, hey, you know what? So the plastic wheel skirt got scuffed up. I'll go buy a new one.
Yeah, it's interesting, with the 9-inch body clearance and a body that's tucked in behind the wheel pants, getting hit with door dings and like running into stuff or running over stuff running over things that are in the road and it puncturing your battery pack. That's not a thing for us. You're not going to hit something that's 14 inches tall that's going to curl up and puncture your battery pack, unless you're unless the apocalypse comes and you're running from the zombies. So it's a different type of vehicle when you think about it from this perspective. But we're strive to open up all of our service docks and how we put the vehicle together for you. So if we have a person that wants to buy a vehicle in an area that we don't have mobile service yet, they can buy that vehicle and we'll ship parts to them within 24 hours if they need them, and they can actually figure out service issues on their own. So it's a different way to think about how to build out kind of a global distribution network when you make things open source, for lack of a better term. And I know a lot of people, if they could jump in and fix a problem in 20 minutes, they would. They got this really cool car. They love it. They, like in the early days of Tesla, hard information about how to fix. Rich Rebuilds has an amazing channel now because he just started out telling people how to fix their Teslas because no one would tell them how to fix their Teslas. So we don't want that to be a problem for Aptera owners. We want to open up as much information as they're hungry for, and we want to get them parts as quickly as they need them. We're building vehicles. We have the parts. There's no reason why we can't send the parts to them to fix their vehicles. So that will be a goal for us.
Awesome.
So independent repair is not a problem for you guys, huh?
Nope. We want to get as many vehicles out as possible, as soon as possible. And that means it's going to be very hard to build out a service network to be where every vehicle is. There'll be a set number of vehicles that ship to a certain area that will justify a mobile service tech. And until, there's enough vehicles there, they won't have a mobile service tech. So what do? Where do they go? They take it to a local shop and they tell them to go to this website to find instructions on how to fix it, and they ship you a part. It'll be here Wednesday, and you take care of it, right? So that's what we hope will enable a lot of people in rural areas in Europe and other parts of the world to take early delivery of an Aptera.
And so where is it going to be sold?
It'll be available online, and you'll place your pre-order or order online, and then we'll ship it and hand deliver it wherever you are.
All 50 states.
All 50 states and Europe and wherever you want an Aptera.
Nice.
And if you get one of the early Apteras,
HVAC?
It does, yeah. Very capable HVAC. The sandwich core composite construction makes for a very well insulated vehicle, and as I said, the solar power will keep the car cool on a hot day. So our systems for HVAC are a lot smaller than you find in the other type of vehicle. Yeah, heat and AC and all those things you would find in a regular vehicle will be standard. Yeah. We're designing, specifically for the cold of Minnesota and the Nordic, countries, Sweden, Norway, the Netherlands. We want those people to be able to utilize our all-wheel drive to zip around those cities like Oslo and be happy with an Aptera.
Cool. Okay. Anybody else?
Oh, are you kidding? We could go another hour.
Yeah, we could.
No, we can't.
They don't have to. I could easily spend more time if you guys have more questions. Happy to. Sorry that my computer ran dry on charge for a little while. But yeah, anything else you guys have on Aptera or other parts of the industry, I'm happy to jump into.
Why don't we do this, Chris? Why don't we see if we can't secure a commitment from you to come back sometime soon, maybe a month or two.
I'm thinking Q1 of next year.
Yeah, hopefully with a better connection and plugged in laptop.
Yeah. Well, like sometime in Q1 of next year, you guys may have a prototype in then, and who knows what. But I would love to have you back to talk about that and to just talk about general battery technology and all of that. There's a lot of things we didn't cover, but I think we covered a lot of ground. I mean, did we miss anything, Mark, Paul?
I just wanted to ask, what's your marketing plan to push this car forward? Obviously, it's going to be internet sales, But is there anything else that you're going to be going with out of the gate to push this car forward, or are you just going on the past orders you've had or previous interest you've had?
We have a crowdfunding going right now at wefunder.com. So if you're interested in supporting clean EV tech like this, you can certainly learn more about us there. So that's kind of spreading the word out in corporate fashion. Obviously, we're getting more traction on Facebook and other social media stuff like that. But really, the biggest thing we'll do over the next 6 months is host events. So obviously, when we have our first prototype, we'll have a launch party. We'll bring in people. We'll let them drive the car. We'll let them see the car, touch, feel. It's a much different vehicle. You can stand in front of it and you can see it, and you can see how the doors open and how you sit in it, and all the things that make it not a weird, unapproachable type vehicle. So we want to do lots of events. We want to kind of travel around and just have different events in big markets so people can see the Aptera and see why it might be the right solution for them. But that's really what we plan to do, is kind of hit the road once we have validation vehicles and prototypes that we can show people, and then we'll get enough pre-orders to hopefully start production by the end of 2020, and then start delivering vehicles to those that want them.
Very good.
And the roadshow will be real vehicles, not styrofoam vehicles.
Hey, maybe other people have fell into that trap, but the very first go around, we had a very nice prototype, and then we had 1, and then we had 3, and then we had 6, and we would take them around and we would show them to people. I don't think we were aggressive enough with that plan before. I think we could have done more, but to be honest, we had so many pre-orders. We were more worried about delivering on those pre-orders than we were about getting more pre-orders. So that could be a situation that we fall into now, but we want as many people to learn about our brand as possible so we can build the brand, as quickly and as big as we, because that it's easier for us to build out a support network to support the brand across the world, and we'll be able to launch into other types of vehicles, 4-wheeled vehicles, utility vehicles, those types of things. So there's no time like the present for electric vehicles, and Tesla has shown it that you can go big. So we're here to do that.
Software updates, yes or no?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, Chris, thank you so much. Let's do some real quick shout outs and go home. I'm going to do the panel first, and then Chris will give you a shot. But for those of you watching, you can go to aptera.us. That's at aptera.us, or I have to look. It is wefunder.com/Aptera if you're ready to invest now. And it looks like you got a whole bunch of investors already. More than $250,000 already raised.
Good.
Yeah.
So 653 investors. That's pretty cool. Anyway, Casey.
Hi. So youtube.com/Casey Green, KACEYGREEN. This weekend, Mark Coughlin and I, we have a very special pair of videos for you guys. So check us out. If you haven't already subscribe to each of us at the Tesla Life and at Casey Green, and we will you'll see a notification to check out our video.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Guzik.
I'll be quick. Check out my website, boulderhc.com, for hybrid repair and EV work in Colorado.
There you go. Something just fell over at Casey's house, I think.
I don't know what, but yes.
Or he's being attacked. Evan.
Earthquakes.
Not too much. Listen, Chris, I wish you great luck with this. I remain highly pessimistic, but I love what you're doing, and I love the innovation, and I do wish you luck, and let's go Blues.
Wait. Let's go Blues. I was so with you, and then you totally
It's not a thing.
put me at the back of the truck at 60 miles an hour.
Nobody says that.
Oh, yeah, only the world champions. You're right.
Oh,
There we go.
God. 2 minutes taunting.
Any shout outs, Mark?
No shout outs tonight. Thanks for coming on the show, Chris. We really appreciate the information on the company.
Awesome.
Thank you. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
Tony.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Chris, for coming on. We really appreciate you spending the time with us. Also, going to give a shout out to Jeff and Christina and Thomas, Terry, Tom, Victorious 20567. These are just a handful of our most recent subscribers. Thank you for taking the time to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have not yet subscribed to the channel and you've watched this entire show, please take a moment and subscribe. It costs absolutely nothing. And if you ever get disappointed in the channel, you can unsubscribe at any time and we'll fully refund your money. Make sure you find us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/whatdrivesus. And if you use Flipboard as your news aggregator, like I do, look for the What Drives Us magazine. You'll see the news articles that we're reading.
Killer. Thank you, Tony. Okay, Chris, this is your spot. Anything you want to plug?
Thanks, guys. I appreciate the questions. I'm glad that I could be on and talk about Aptera and everything EV. Happy to come back when we've made a little more progress and we can show you guys some more.
Definitely.
Steve and Michael couldn't make a call. I didn't want to clutter it up with two. Well, there's already 7 people now. So. But Steve Fambro and Michael Johnson, the other co-founders of Aptera, send a shout out to them. And all of our 653 investors on WeFunder, I salute you. Thank you very much. Happy to come back. Happy to have an engaging conversation with you guys and totally supportive about you spreading the EV and ecotech gospel. Continue doing what you do.
Absolutely. We've certainly, back in the old days, the old Aptera, we were kind of like, hey, this is weirdly cool and different. And then it kind of seemed to go sideways, and then it did, but whatever. And then, it's come back and we've certainly expressed our doubts. And I think most of them are pretty reasonable. But that said, I don't think there's anybody on this show or on this panel right now that isn't cheering for you, that doesn't want to see another efficient consumer choice. And I love a lot of what you're saying about making parts that are inexpensive for consumers, getting parts out to consumers, encouraging independent repair, not trying to do everything that you can't, because you can't do everything. Nobody can. Even legacy car companies with thousands of dealers sometimes have trouble. So, recognizing your limitations and working within them. I'm really looking forward to having you back, and I'm looking forward to the email or the phone call that I'm going to get from you, somebody that says, Russell, we have a prototype. You want to come drive it, don't you?
Yeah.
Is that a hint? Yeah, that's me inviting
Yeah.
myself to a party. That's what that is. Since I'm local, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Huge thanks to Chris Anthony. By the way, dude, you have enormous composite balls of steel and titanium for coming on this show after the drubbing that we've given Aptera. And seriously, nothing but respect, sir. Nothing but respect, because, like I said, we are.
I didn't even show you a sample of our composites here.
Oh, nice.
Sample 4, and look at that. We'll talk about them more on the next show.
Yeah. He's already setting up teasers. I love it.
Absolutely. So our thanks to Chris Anthony. As always, I want to thank Michael Mannering for our amazing theme music. Visit him at manthing.com. Thanks
Or my
to
house.
Yes,
Evan's house on the 21st. Thanks to
Is he
all
there
of you.
to watch the Blues game?
No, we're not watching the Blues game. We're watching Michael Mannering blow your mind. As always, thanks to all of you who watch. Thanks for all of our subscribers. You guys have been great. Keep going. Keep spreading the word. We will be back. Tune in next week and find out what drives us. Dun, dun, dun.
There it is.
See you later.